All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to begin this video by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Racha, Kodash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Lord's elect, beginning with the 144,000. This is a Ratazah from the Great Millstone GMS Atlanta camp with another quick one. All right, and it's going to be centered around this recent story dealing with Donald Trump. You see this article I have is from NBCnews.com, and the headline says Trump administration. Trump signs executive order rebranding Defense Department as Department of War. All right. So yeah, brothers shared this article. May have also done videos on it, but it's spiritual. It's symbolic because that's the time that we in. All right. We in a time of war. Pursuing the one scripture I had was Ecclesiastes 3:1, where it speaks about how there's a time for everything on the earth, roughly paraphrasing. And it says a time of love and a time of hate and a time of war and a time of peace, right? So we in a time of war right now. You got America and these other nations. They're gearing up to be a part of the next coming major war, which is World War III. As the scriptures also say in Revelation, I think it's 11 and 14, where it says the second woe was past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Okay, which is what? World War III. So this name change is is in alignment with the prophecies, because war is on the horizon. All right, let's read a little bit of the article. I might just read this one little paragraph. I want to make this rather short. All right. So it says President Donald Trump signed an executive order Friday, okay, which was yesterday. This is rebranding the Department of Defense as the Department of War, a more bellicose alternative that echoes the agency's 18th century name. It says, quote, I think it sends a message of victory. I think it sends really a message of strength. We're very strong. We're much stronger than anyone would really understand, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office after signing the order. All right. When I read this quote, I thought of Daniel's 7th chapter. When it says he had a mouth speaking great things. Let's see if we can get that. Daniel 7 and is it? No, I think it's 7 and 8. Excuse me. Right. So I actually started at verse 7. All right. This is the book of Daniel, chapter 7 and verse 7. The point is in verse 8. It says, after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. Okay. If you don't know, you read Daniel the 7th chapter, when it speaks about these particular beasts. These beasts are representations of kingdoms. Okay. Like the Greeks, the Romans, the Medo-Persian Empire, so forth and so on. What is fourth beast is referring to the Roman Empire. All right. In which today you got America, NATO, the EU, this whole system is essentially modeled after the Roman Empire, especially America. All right. And you can go deeper into the breakdown, the prophecy of it, which, for instance, you read the book of Revelation, how it speaks about the how the horn was wounded, or the beast was wounded unto death, but then it was resurrected, meaning that the Roman Empire came back. All right. So we're basically living in a modern day Roman system. All right. But that's a separate topic for another video to go more into it. But nonetheless, this is speaking about the Roman Empire. It says, after this, I saw in night visions, behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth, which represents the military might. It said it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns, which today would be the European Union or the EU nations. All right. Then it goes on in verse 8. It says, I considered the horns, which horns also represent power. All right. Horns of powers, or, certain nations that have might, kingdoms that have power. All right. It says, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Right. That little horn is referring to America. All right. The little horn is America. It says, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Right. The 3 that was plucked up represents the British, I believe the British, the Spanish, and the French. Okay. Those are 3 wars that America had to fight prior to it being established as a nation. All right. Babylon the Great. It says, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Right? So a mouth speaking great things. This is an example of that. It's something that Trump said yesterday, right? About how it's measures of victory. We're strong. We're very strong, and people don't understand how strong we really are. That's an example of that. All right, those great swelling words, that pompous speech. All right, thinking that they can't be stopped, and that essentially links with the prophecy. All right, with America being Babylon the Great, being the woman you read about in Revelation, the 17th chapter, about how she sits upon all the people. She reigns over all the nations, roughly paraphrasing. That's how we know that America is Babylon the Great, and it's the woman that you read about in scriptures or books like the Book of Revelation. All right, and they think that they can't be taken down. All right. And, that's pretty much the point, man. It says Trump had signaled during his second term an interest in changing the name to the original version from 1789, criticizing the Defense Department name as not fully reflective of its priority, winning wars. He told reporters Friday that he finalized the decision after talking about it for months, and asserted the original name was only changed because the government at the time went woke. All right. Yeah, so they that's that Edomite pride, that pompous nature. There's another scripture in Psalm says that he puffeth at his enemies, which means he boasts. See, so this just further proves that not number one, we're in a time of war. All right, and the Most High is putting the idea or putting the thought in these nations and the leaders of these nations to get ready for war. And 2, it proves that America is Babylon the Great. It's that proud, lofty nation, that speaks great swelling words that as we just read in Daniel 7, had the eyes of man, and it speak of great things. Yeah, we're this, we're that. We're the most powerful nation. It's all about victory and winning and showing our dominance and all of that. Let's get one more in closing. Matter of fact, I think I quoted it earlier, but we'll just read it. Ecclesiastes 3 in verse 1. I believe the point is in verse 8. And you see there, it says a time for everything, right? Verse 1, it says to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. As the scriptures, or as people rather say, there's a time and place for everything. Well, that goes back to the scripture. All right, you read through, you can see the different things that happens, death and healing and building up and breaking down. All right, when you get to the point in verse 8, it says, Ecclesiastes 3 verse 8, it says, a time to love and a time to hate. All right, which we're in a time of hating right now. All right, now we're in a time of love amongst the hopeful elect and the brothers, the true believers of the true believers of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. But this world is hateful, right? We're in a time of hate. All right, and it says the point, a time of war and a time for peace. See that? We're not in a time of peace right now. We're in a time of war. And that's what the spirit the Lord is pushing out on these nations. Pursuing the Joel, what's that, 3 and 9? That's another scripture. You see? So yeah, it's a time place for everything. And now the stage is being set for these nations to go to war. Esau to show his pride, Esau being a so-called white man, to show his, pompous, lofty, posture. We know with Trump, which many of us believe Trump is Nero, showing that pride and really just showing that the prophecies are true. All right. And how you got America being that little horn that would spring up in these latter days that would basically carry the torch of the Roman Empire with that pride, man. So that pretty much was it. I just wanted to do a quick one on that. To show that, I thought that, Trump giving that name change was, spiritual. It was symbolic. That's the time that we're living in. All right. So with that, Lord, when you was edified, I'm going to sign off and it's on to the next one. Shalom.